What's up, everybody? It's your favorite How Am I Gonna Fit This All in Frames favorite nerd, and today we are looking at Maketoys Pandinus, which is their take on Scorponok. This is going to be a challenge just due to the size of it, but just to give you an idea, like, I gotta go way back here to try to get this thing in frame. It's huge. Let me go ahead and get the elephant in the room out of the way. Someone from Maketoys contacted me, said they kind of liked what I was doing, asked if I was interested in taking a look at this. My answer was absolutely. I told them that the only thing that I was concerned about on my end is that my integrity wasn't really up for debate. Fix this. If I saw issues with something or had a flaw or something that I thought needed to be worked on, that I was going to have to mention it. They said they didn't have any problem with that whatsoever. They said that even some of the criticism I've had, that they've shared, and it was a very, very good conversation. So I commend them for having the faith and confidence in their product to allow somebody like me to take a look at it. I'm humbled, I'm honored, and I'm touched. And with that being said, let's talk about this. He has accessories. He has some other things going on. We're going to kind of take a look at them as we go along, including the Headmaster. We'll kind of take a look at him as we go along as well. And I might cut and show you the transformation of the Headmaster here. We got blue paint on the head, and the red is a light piping. And I got a little piece of flash there. Otherwise, good to go. The head does swivel on this piece here, which the chain is connected to. So that's good. And then we have a waist swivel. Arms are on a ball joint at the shoulder. They will go off if you stretch to their capacity. No bicep swivel, but you get the shoulder ball joint, which kind of works as one. Arm on a single hinge, which gets you to there, or forearm rather, at the elbow. You have silver paint on the chest, red paint on the pelvis. You have some ball joints here for the hips, but they're on these like pegs almost, so you only get out to there, which is fair. Forward to here, and then back you get the full range, mainly for transformation. And that's pretty much this guy. Could have used a little bit more paint there on the bottom of the legs, but otherwise good to go. And then you have this translucent piece here, which is his weapon slash tail. Also, it would have been nice if there was a hole in his hand that this piece could have inserted in, so he could have held it, because I do feel like this kind of just gets in the way a lot of times, as we'll see as this video kind of goes on. But yeah, otherwise good to go. The face sculpt looks good. Let's transform him into a scorpion, and then we'll transform him into a head. So, and I'll show it both from bot mode, because that's how you mainly need it. So to get it to scorpion mode, you just bring back these legs here to cover up the head, so to speak. And then you use these pieces here, which are like on an armature, to go down there. So I guess you could count that as shoulder articulation if you wanted, but it might be a bit much. And then these kind of become your scorpion claws. And then this is the tail. And that's kind of how that works. And it's fair enough. You get the tail, which is on real chain, and then translucent pieces throughout. Looks fine. And then you get these, you know, the same articulation that you do for the shoulders up here. And all in all, not bad, right? Now to get it into head mode, rotate the hips 180, bring the arm pieces down, and then swivel this top piece around. I did learn that the head is actually on an independent swivel from this chest piece. It's just tight. But rotate this whole piece around here. And as you can see, the head got moved, so it is on its own bit. And then at this point, you can move the arms back up, and the arms sit side by, just like in a natural position, and all this kind of tabs together. But because these ball joints, it can pose a bit of a problem. But you want 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So we'll get one. And then we'll get the other. And there's the head. There's no sense in talking about paint or types of plastic and each mode. So when we get to robot mode, we'll kind of break down the whole thing. Until then, we're just going to talk about features, nuances, and tidbits. I will say right away that the size of this thing is significant, to say the least. If you're thinking about buying this, make sure you think about shelf space to display it in. I'm going to give you some measurements here just because of how important it is. Now, lengthwise, with this piece here fully extended, you can go ahead and set aside about 27.5 inches to be safe. From its widest points, now there's some options and we'll talk about them, we're looking at about 2 feet. And then from top to bottom, including the gun, once again, there's options, but you're looking at about 27 inches to play it safe. So make sure you think about that when you're thinking about purchasing him, because he does eat up some real estate. But if you're a guy like me, you've had his shelf space mapped out for months. I'm going to get in tight. We're going to take a look at some of the features. These are all on ball joints, so you can have them adjusted to how you feel like looks the most wicked. I think they have it referenced as to be more open, but I kind of like the more closed look. I think it just looks more, evil and ominous and such. But they're all on ball joints, range of motion about this far, up and down. Then you can see the joint opens up here to a wider range of motion the further down you go. You have these that actually turn. They don't actually do anything, at least as far as I can tell, but they do turn to kind of represent the drawbridge aspect. This aspect of the drawbridge right here, if you can see in the front. If you want, you can retract this as to where I've been keeping it to have it save a little bit of space. And then you can retract it into there as well. Not that you ever would, because that looks cooler. You have these rockets on the side of his arm. They suggest standing up, but you can rotate them back to kind of be launching into the air, or you can have them launching straight up if you like that look better. All those are options for you. You can open up the claws here in the front if you like that look better. You can swivel this whole piece around if you prefer that. It really comes down to what look you prefer. But I think I like this. I don't know if I were to display in this mode, I think I might spread those knuckles apart. I just think that looks kind of cool. And then over here we have this turret. It rotates on a swivel, and then we have this targeting system, and that kind of folds down or folds up depending on how you want it. Also on the side we have this armature here. That can come up. It can't turn once it's here, but if you like that look better and to kind of give you an idea of what it would look like from the front, you can have it like that, which I do think looks kind of cool. You have these pistons here on the side, and it looks like they would just like be exhaust or off, because it doesn't look like they're used for struts for support, just because they don't touch the ground. Would have been cool if something came out of here at the bottom to kind of push against the ground. I think that would have been cool. And then you have these translucent accents there. The tail, as you can see, comes all the way up here, and then it has that gun that kind of attaches to it. If you want to save some space on your shelf, you can articulate the tail down. Like that, and you can save some space, and that does look pretty cool as well, just in the sense of options. Now, this piece tabs into the bottom of it, and we'll look at it here in a second a bit closer. Alright, so I wanted to make sure I got this, and I didn't film it very well the first time. In order to get this to work, you got to slide this handle down into the upper part of that slot, and then slide it down on those bars, which then grips this piece here and this piece here. But you can't really see what you're doing, so it's not the easiest thing to do. So make sure that those slots are on the outward sides. Slide it in, push it down, and you're good to go. And there it is with the laser or cannon or whatever it is attached to it, and kind of a downward look on everything. I'm going to get in a little tighter so you can kind of see all the little details and sculpt and all that kind of stuff. This head, there's actually some options you can do with this depending on how you want it. Same with these. But they have it, I think, down at an angle like that, which I think does look the best. But the head, you could turn the head around forward. You can actually flip this whole purple piece upside down, have the head like these horns hanging upside down if you wanted. There's a number of different options you can do there display-wise. But I think that the way it is intended, which is this way, is probably the best. Maybe the head, maybe turn around that way I like better. Here's Maketoys tailgate. X-Transbots Arcos, and just for a masterpiece size, there's Ironhide. And we're going to talk about scale a little bit towards the end, but I don't think that's hateful. I think that if you're a Jaguar masterpiece collector, that this can scratch that itch, and we'll get there. Just bear with me. Now we're going to get to transforming this thing, which we're going to obviously do in a montage due to the size. I will try to be as descriptive as I possibly can. I want to say, first of all, though, that this thing comes in the box, not in any mode, but probably closest to temple mode. And I gotta tip my hat to them. They have an instruction sheet in there on how to go from how it comes packaged in the box to temple mode. Because in the box, it's kind of halfway between Scorpion mode and temple mode, and then you have to kind of add in some pieces, and they have instructions on how to do that, and I used them because I was lost, and it was very intuitive and relatively easy. The only thing that I thought could have been explained better was mine came in this piece here. This whole purple piece here was shifted around, turned 180 degrees like this, but it was on the other side, and I had a hard time figuring out how to get it the way it looked in the book. But once I got it, it was no problem. That was the only thing I kind of struggled on. Now we're going to transform them. Bear with me. I'm still recovering. I had a huge party yesterday, like a huge cookout. All my friends were there, tons of friends. We had a blast, had a great time. What was that? No, just the wind. But in all seriousness, I actually am a bit under the weather. But we're going to get through this. We're going to do it together. I know it's important to get this out. I know it's important for you guys to see it before you kind of invest this much money into it. So I wanted to make sure that I put my own health aside for the good of the people. Step one, collapse the bridges. This piece all the way in. This piece all the way in. Then you actually have to remove the entire drawbridge. Now, this piece slides in there, and this piece tabs into these holes here, and these clips grab around to these side panels there. Lower this whole section here down. Next, we have to move these side pieces out. The instructions have you do it 4 clicks because they're on a ratcheted joint at this ratchet here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is where I may run out of room. But then you want to bring this whole back section down and straight. Now this is looking at the bottom of the figure. Be sure as you flip it over, this has a tendency to collapse. Be sure it's straightened all the way. Tab these two into there and this into here. And it's got to be lined up just right. Like that. And that's it. You can then reattach your drawbridge put back together by just sliding these 2 pieces in. Oops, sorry. And tab them back in the same way that you had them tabbed on the other side, basically, with these and this. Alright, now we're going to do this arm. It's a bit of a trick to stay oriented, so we're going to do the best we can. We're going to put down this orange piece here, turn these cannons out to the side. This piece pulls down. If you grab a hold of this and pull it straight down, it's on a ratcheted hinge, that'll pull down. And then you can bring a lot of ratchets here, so forgive the sound. This piece all the way around. Rotate the shoulder 180. Then turn here at the bicep, and then rotate your hand, and then make sure that these are on the side. And then you can use this double hinge here to orient the claw forward. And then you can adjust your guns last. One more time, because I know that's a lot. Collapse your orange translucent pieces to protect them. You can get your guns out of the way, it doesn't really matter, but pull down on this piece here. Bring this whole section out to the side. Rotate the shoulder 180 degrees. Rotate at the bicep to orient the claws. And you want them so that this piece is on top, I believe. And then rotate the claws. Then separate your double hinge joint here and wrap the claw around. And that's the other side done. It's hard to explain orient your guns, but it's a lot easier to do in person because you kind of have to have things be a certain way. You need this on top. You need the claws to face inward. You need the guns to go this way. You need this little protective shield here to sit on the inside. So it's one of those things that's hard to explain, but doing it, knowing where the pieces have to end up, it's a little bit simpler. Now you can bring the tail up just to save yourself some space. Move it at this ratchet here. All right, now you want to move it this purple piece here, or we're going to do the opposite side first, but it's this piece right here. 4 clicks up. Now in the instructions it has this hook going into this slot. But what you want is this hook to sit in between these 2 notches. That's something that was, I think, just a mistake on the instructions. And that'll sit in there. So now we'll try to do it all in one take. Close that piece. Up 4 notches. Close so that it sits in between these 2 notches in here, this purple hook. Good to go. One of the last things, open this piece up here. Rotate this section down and around to reveal the seat. Now I usually have a problem just because of fat finger syndrome, but you need this tab here to go in there. I'm going to give it a shot on camera, see if I can get it to work, but no promises. Well, it didn't seem to go too poorly. And then we'll see if we can rotate it up and down. Not too bad. And then your final steps are just getting it oriented. So turn the head so that the visor side is up. Bring your tail around. Get your claws the way you want them. Get your legs the way you want them. And you're in service. So let's talk articulation a bit. You can manipulate this front piece here if you'd like, just on a swivel, and then you can get the up and down here. Your arms, you know, your turrets still rotate, obviously. You can rotate these. You can rotate the, or move on this double hinge here, your claws. Do you get the biceps still? No. But you still get the rotation here, so that makes up for it. You can rotate these however you want on a swivel. You got these claws, which once again you can open. You can move back to there. So let me get you a better view. All the way back to there and open to there, and then you can pinch them, I mean, all the way through. The tail, which you can, this is like a soft ratchet here, and then you got a soft ratchet there, and a hard ratchet at the Decepticon looking face. I think that the look of this is very menacing. This piece here is one of my complaints. I'm going to talk about it when we get to robot mode, why it's one of my complaints, but overall it's a very menacing, very intimidating. Like the size of these cannons would have been nice to have some paint on there. We're going to talk about that when we get to robot mode. But it is, you can put another little guy in there. That's pretty cool. And I wonder if that extends also in temple mode. Of course, you got the same ball joints here. These are not used to support the weight. They're just kind of used to illustrate the look, but they do a fine job. I think that these are a nice touch, these little like horn bits, the translucent pieces. It looks very cohesive. I never had a Scorponok as a kid, but this is scratching that itch. There's a ton of details in these hands here. We'll talk about that more in robot mode, but it is pretty impressive. Like, and it's solid in this mode. You know? Like, it ain't going anywhere. Everything is pretty much stuck in. So I don't have any real complaints. And we'll kind of use the same size comparisons because it kind of gets you the different levels. There's like a chug type piece and a Masterpiece mini bot, which is like the size of a deluxe, and then Ironhide. And like, I don't have any real gripe with that on either section. Like, just to further illustrate it, you know what I mean? Like, there's nothing wrong with that. That's all sorts of good. And just to show, like, there's nothing holding Ironhide. Like, it's the tension of the claws that hold him, but no problem. if you wanted to display them in scorpion mode. And just to be safe, you're looking at about 27 inches, maybe 30 if you wanted the claws more outstretched. About probably 14 would be safe, then you could get the scorpion tail up a bit more. Width-wise, with the claws outstretched a fair bit, not fully, but a fair bit, you're looking at 20 and a half, 21 inches. Now let's get to the money shot. So, once again, undo this. Now, I will say, my guy came undone here. But there is an easy way out, as you can see, no fuss, no muss. But just be sure you kind of got this as well in there as you can. It's a bit fiddly, so the good news is you can get it up and you can have access to it, but just be aware of that. And then you can close this back up. Once again, looking underneath the figure, you can now take this piece back off. Rotate your legs 4 clicks up, and you're using this bottom ratchet. That was the top one. And this one. And you can get it sorted later, but just to give you room. And then you want to get this tail up and out of the way. That's a hard ratchet there. This is the point that it gets hard to do on camera. But what you have to do is you have to get the legs straightened out. And I just don't know an easy way to show you that without just holding it up and doing it. Just, once you have it, that's the front. That's how the leg goes. Untab these bits and move them out of the way. Move this piece up, which is like the knee. Fold the foot down. And then these, I hope you can see that. Let me make sure that you can. Yes, you can. These tabs here slide into this piece here, which is on an armature that rotates on a ball joint. And then this piece comes up so that you can meet it. And tab it in. Or slide it in, rather. I'll show you again on the other side. Lost the light. Oh well. We'll worry about that in a minute. Extend this. Bring the ball joint down. Line it up the best you can. And slide it in. This is something that would ordinarily probably bother me. But it's actually not the hardest thing to do. I say that and now I'm having all sorts of issues. But there's enough kind of moving pieces here to make it relatively... You know what? I got it wrong. It's like this, that's why. And there you have it. I'll show you again on the other side. I got it down pat now. So, make sure that the thigh is straight. Bring this green bit down so that it slides into there. Rotate the knee pad up. Untab these. Fold the foot up. I'll try to show you a better way now. Rotate this to the back and then extend that so that it slides in to this slot. And the same on the other side. So make sure it's facing the back. Adjust this as need be. Figure out the angle. Slide it in. Easy as pie. It's just hard to kind of hold everything and show you, but it's not as hard as the second one made it look. So open, spin this around so that the tail and the legs are on the same side. Alright, so this piece here latches onto the back side of this bar here, which, as you can see, my finger's in that gap. So it's right on the other side of that gap. Keep your legs out of your way. And then this comes back around and slides into there. And adjust your legs as need be. Now what you need to do is you need to get that into there. And it's not easy to do. And it's not it's not the best measured out piece on mine. But if you can rotate it here and then use the purple bit as a lever, you should be able to get it in there. So rotate it up as far as you can go. And then use the purple piece as a lever to get it in. Now what you need to do is orient the arms. So bring them down. Bring this piece down. And then you need to rotate to get this gray piece back up against there. So that make sure that this is on the outside. And you're in service. Bring down the arm. Then you want this gray piece here up against there. And then you want this piece here on the top. And then you want the claw to be on the inside, and that's your arm. Lastly, you want to insert the head. Make sure that you have the translucent piece facing the face, and just slide it into that port right there. Make sure your chain is oriented. Close up the head. Alright, so let's cover all the gimmicks. The gun unplugs from the tail, and then you use this sliding bit into those sliding slots, just like many other Maketoys products. And once it's lined up properly, it'll slide in and it ain't going anywhere. Here's the gun itself. This is not the best. Like, okay, so you see all this sculpted detail and stuff? This could have definitely used some paint. This piece does come out. We're going to talk about that here in a second. And there's some cool, like, I like these like little blades and stuff. And it's like the silhouette of it is cool, but it doesn't really match the rest of the set in terms of its menace. We'll talk about that a bit more, but I just wanted to show you a quick overview of the weapon. Pretty much just orange gray and darker gray plastic. I think this is some paint down in here. Some gunmetal paint down in there. Now let's say you run out of ammunition. You just slide out your barrel and pull out. I had to get some tension on that. Your sections here, both sections do come out. And then you can slide out your energy pieces. They tab in. You can then open this piece up here. Slide these bits out. It's the same on both sides. If you can see over here. And slide this piece out and refill your ammunition. These little pieces down here open up. I'm not sure what you would put in there, but they open up. You can mount your parts forming pieces onto here. If you do need the clearance to do so, they'll sit on there, and the other side. Also, they'll go on the side here, and you can swivel this so that you can aim it, you know, any direction that you choose. So you have those options. Now, to start from scratch, you can also slide these pieces off and put them up here, which I think I like better, personally. I just think that's kind of a cooler look. And then if you wanted, you could slide your claw piece I don't want to get ahead of myself onto there, but the other side you have to have kind of going up. But you could always slide them onto the shoulders as well. And that piece just sticks right back in. And you can do that. So there's all the options for the parts forming pieces. Let's take one more look at something you can do with the arms. Is you can take this whole piece off here, straighten out the hand, get it sorted, and now you have a hand. And if you wanted to, you can put back the claw. I'll raise the camera up a taste. Use this part here and latch that onto there, and then that whole piece can swivel and you can do whatever you want with that. But it is like it's heavy, you know, so that may not work. We're going to try it with another piece because all of this stuff is interchangeable. So let's slide in the rocket launcher, and then we'll slide in this. No, that still doesn't work very well, but you can have it at least straight up. So the head, as you saw before, is on a swivel here, and then it hinges down so you can look down. On a big bot, you know, that's what I think is the most important. For paint, it's actually fairly well. So you got this translucent piece here, you have the silver paint underneath, you have the red eyes underneath the translucent visor. You have this gold paint here, which is done fairly well. Could have probably used a second coat, but done fairly well. And the silver paint on the translucent, which actually looks pretty good. You got translucent pieces here, and these silver pieces, I believe, are painted, and the paint on them looks really good. So all the silver, to me, looks painted. Moving down, you got this blue that's painted on this gray plastic with the translucent piece, and then this darker gray piece with the translucent piece in the center. Down here we have the silver painted onto the purple plastic, and then the translucent piece there as well. And here is just gray plastic and then purple plastic. I like the breakup in purple plastics. Like I like the darker purple against the lighter purple and vice versa. And then for these side mounted things, you have gray plastic and a darker gray plastic with orange paint and red paint applied, and both are done fairly well. No real standout errors there. Alright, for the waist, do we have a waist swivel? Yes, it is. Now you can pull it up and get a little bit more and drop it back down to get what I feel is a fairly anatomically correct swivel. Now you may have to adjust the backpack as you do that. You know, just depending on how you have the legs and stuff, you may have to go around and tab it back in when you get it where you want it, but it all should stick. For the shoulders, we have a good bit. I'm going to move the camera. I also want to note that that's about as far down as you can get this top Decepticon piece. I would have liked if maybe you could have get it all the way down so you could see more of the symbol, but it's not hateful. You have a universal joint here, basically. It's ratcheted. And then this piece moves out of the way so that you can get that out to there, and it also rotates out to here. So you get the full spread. Nothing really to complain about there. Moving down, you can utilize this, but it starts to break up the sculpt if you want more of a double jointed elbow, like if you use this elbow and this elbow in unison, but that's not really how it's intended. So we're going to leave that up. We have a ratcheted bicep swivel, ratcheted elbow getting you 90 degrees. For the more human-esque hand, you have, this is on a ball joint, it looks like, so you get the swivel, you can get it out, but it breaks up the sculpt. Then you have the thumb is on a ball joint at the base knuckle and one hinge here. All four fingers are individual ball joints, and then a hinge at the first knuckle, and that's it. Which works just fine. And since we're on the topic, the gun also slots down into the hand, so that holds it just fine as well. And that should do it. I don't know why these two colors here are different, but I'm guessing it's for a reason. I don't know this character very well, and when I think of him with the clawed hands. So, but it is a weird choice, but it's probably for a reason, and I'm sure people will let me know in the comments. But what I do want to point out is, aside from the translucent piece here, there's really not a lick of paint. So that's something to think about. There's plenty of room for paint up in there, on there, and a side, but otherwise not a lick on the entire arm. So just pointing that out. Same for the other side. Now, of course, these red bits are painted on to this. As far as articulation, everything is the same until we get into the hand. You still get the same elbow joint. You get a wrist swivel. And then you get the same kind of articulation we've talked about with the wrist. Fingers spread, or with the hand rather. Fingers spread open to there. And also can close all the way. They can pinch down. And, oh, you got a knuckle here too. And here. So, at the, basically the first knuckle. And then the thumb piece closes as well. Once again, here you have some gray paint, so that breaks it up a little bit nicer on that knuckle there. And then other than that, you just have the translucent plastic. I will say I haven't seen any translucent plastic concerns so far. All right, let's lower the camera and we'll talk about the bottom. Hips, ratcheted universals. So these waist flaps also move. They seem to be on, they're on a ball peg into the pelvis. Gray plastic with the orange translucent piece. So you get up to there, which is pretty good, back to there, and then out all the way to there. And probably, I can probably get one more click, yep. So almost out to straight up 90 degrees. Ratcheted thigh swivel. Detailing wise, you got gray plastic, purple plastic, and then blue paint on the gray plastic there, and then translucent bits in there. For the knee, you got a double jointed knee, but even with using one joint, you get 90 degrees. Using the other joint breaks up the sculpt a little bit, but you can get it all the way back. It breaks up the sculpt a fair bit. All right. Get my forearm workout today, son. Now for this lower section here, we have an ankle tilt down to there, so just basically flat, and even up a taste, and then a ratcheted ankle rocker right here, so you can get your A stance no problem all the way out and that far in, which I think is good enough. Now with that being said, as you adjust the feet, these bits are liable to come out of location, so you'll just have to plug them back in when you're done, but it shouldn't be an issue once you get them posed. And for the back, I'm not sure how you boys feel, but I'd say that that cleans up exceptionally well. Now you get these, you know, arms the way you want it. My backpack came unplugged when I was doing the waist bit, but pretty clean bot. Now let's talk about the feet detailing. So we have translucent pieces breaking up the grays down here, and then we have different colors of grays and then gray against the green, and that's pretty much where the color breakup comes into play across the board here. Let me make sure. Yeah, and that's pretty much this guy in a nutshell. All right, let's do some size comparisons. I'm just going to swap them out so we can move through this. Tailgate, Arcos, Ironhide, Quakewave, Warbitron, Bruticus. There's Hasbro Metroplex, so a good deal smaller than him. Utopia. Now, here's what I want to talk about with scale. All right, now we've talked about like the Warbitron pieces. Now those bots, they scale properly with the Masterpiece car bots. So I feel like Warbitron as a combiner can be seen as within scale of Masterpiece. Now you have like the ToyWorld Devastator, that's going to be huge, but I also feel like those bots are a little too big for the car bots. I also feel like the car bots are a little small, so it might be the car bots' fault, but then that gets even more complicated. However, a lot of people are using the Warbitron stuff for their chug scale, which I think is too big for chug scale. Now if you were using Combiner Wars for your chug scale combiners and then your city bots, this also kind of works. But I'm kind of okay with them being slightly bigger than the combiners. Like that kind of, it makes sense to me. I don't necessarily know why, and I hear people that say it's not right for Masterpiece scale, but I'm just saying it doesn't bother me. And I don't see another company making city bots, and aside from Hasbro, but I don't see a company of this caliber making city bots. Like I don't see you know, like Fanstoys or Mastermind Creations making city bots. And if they did, you know, we'd have to go back to the table. We'd have to table that discussion and talk about it. But for the moment, I kind of feel like you can make this work. At least I can, in my mind's eye, of how this fits in with my collection. Real quick, while we're on the subject of size comparisons, this is my top shelf. The Dinobots are temporarily there. They're going to their own place. But I got TFC Defensor, and then TFC Superion, and then Utopia, and then Scorponok, and then Menasor from Fans Project, and then TFC Hercules. So, like, just speaking of scale, like, to me, that kind of works. Especially with the older combiners. But it still kind of works. Final thoughts-wise, it's a very impressive piece. There's a lot of very cool things about it, but that's not to say that it's perfect. And I have a few minor gripes and some less than minor gripes, but nothing deal-breaking. For one, they did their best with different color breakup in order to give the sculpt enough intricacy to make it visually interesting. Now, shout out to my buddy Greg. He was worried it maybe got too busy. And in hand, I can tell you it doesn't feel too busy. But I think that like a few little nuances, and there's tons of places for it. I'm sure Repro Labels is going to have a ball with this set. But like just little indentations like there and there, just plenty of places to make little details pop all along in these little ridge marks. The sculpt is there. The mold is there for it. They just didn't apply much paint. And I'm sure it's a cost thing, but it just would have been nice to see. I think when you get to the price point that this guy starts to carry, you know, you kind of want that paint, and you kind of maybe are even willing to kick out a little bit extra to make sure it's there. The Headmaster, I wish that he fit into the gun turrets a little easier. I couldn't get him to go in. I'll show you here. This here. That would have been nice. But I wish he was able to fit in and be a little bit more inclusive to the set in that way. Now, who's going to have him in display in that way? And all that kind of stuff, and I totally get it. I'm just pointing it out. The peg that pegs in the back of the scorpion tail into the body, that part is my biggest tolerance issue with this thing. It seems like that's a place where bad things could happen. You got to be really careful. You got to make sure that you're keeping your eye on it and make sure that it goes in well. It's a long peg. It's a solid piece of plastic. I'm just pointing it out that there's definitely a tolerance issue there, and it's not the easiest fit. That's the only real big deal that I have with this guy. The gun is just kind of a, I don't know, it doesn't look appropriate. It doesn't look as menacing as the rest of the sculpt. So that's kind of a criticism that I have. I wish that the gun looked as dangerous as the rest of this kind of piece does. People are going to have probably an issue with the parts forming element. It doesn't bother me in the least. And I feel like it kind of brings the whole thing together, and at least there's options to incorporate it every way. The options in bot mode are maybe a little bit much, but at least they're there. And then lastly, the waist here expands, as you can see. Maybe. And I wish there was a way to kind of lock that up, because I kind of like it sitting a little higher up, but I can't find a way to do so. But that may be my own mistake. But if it is, somebody please feel free to let me know. But outside of that, those are the criticisms that I have with it. I also want to point out on the shoulders, they did the same thing I think they did with Utopia, where like the screws are visible on one side and not on the other. So hopefully they'll put out the screw covers to go with this as well. That's just a way to use the reverse sculpt in order to make the cost, like the production cost, less. But there's plenty of positives as well. But before we get to them, I want to give you guys, collectors, an idea of how much shelf space you're looking for robot mode. I'd say 20.5 inches to be safe height-wise, a depth of maybe 16 inches to be safe, and a width probably 19 to 20 inches to be safe for your shelf. Hopefully, I wanted to give you guys that because I wanted you to be able to have that as a point of reference for when you're planning out your shelf space, planning out your collection. I know that's important. It was important to me, so I want to make sure that I got that information for you guys. So outside of that, let's talk about the transformation. So the transformation is busy, right? Like it's busy because it's so big, and you have to kind of be on your P's and Q's with it. But for being as big as it is and being as cumbersome as dealing with a piece of this size, the transformation kind of flows. The instructions are pretty good. The videos are also helpful that they put out. And I love out in the instructions that they have the amount of clicks to turn the ratchets. Like this little stuff like that makes everything just move a lot easier. I think the articulation is crazy for a bot this size. Like, it's on the money. I wish that there was a little bit more head articulation, but I'm happy that if they were going to make a decision that they went with swivel and hinge down rather than swivel and hinge forward. But I would have also liked the hinge forward. I do think that sometimes the head sculpt gets lost in the overall presentation of this bot, so it would have been nice to have him be able to look up a little bit, I think. However, the articulation as a whole is just, it's pretty spectacular given the size of the bot that you're dealing with. And there's so many ratchets. I mean, bicep swivel ratchets, ankle ratchets on the tilts and the rockers, thigh swivel ratchets. Like, there's ratchets everywhere, and they're well-placed ratchets, and they hold the weight of this thing perfectly well. The paint, where it is applied pretty well. There's a couple places where the red got out of lines, but for the most part, I'd say 90% it's on the money. All the translucents look great, and they're holding up. I'm not seeing one iota of a stress mark anywhere. I love the size. I love the sculpt. It's a very Maketoys style sculpt, but I think it looks good. It looks imposing, and it works, right? Because we talked about scale already, and I hope I've justified my position on it, because I've always planned on adding this piece to my collection. So it's standard Maketoys materials. It's standard Maketoys articulation. It has that action figure element. But I think it's a step above what I'm used to with Maketoys in the sense of how easy the transformation is given the size of the bot. Like, this is a lot more of an enjoyable process than I feel like Utopia was. And I liked Utopia. But just to give it a point of reference, I hope I give this thing enough justice. I can tell you that I definitely recommend it. Just make sure that you have the shelf space. Make sure you have the storage space if you plan on keeping the box. But I think it's a great set. I talked to them one time at TFCon, and they told me that they had plans also for a Fort Max and a Triptychon, and my opinion is bring it on ASAP. But I want to make sure I give them a shout out, because it's pretty impressive to me that they would trust a guy like myself who does have some criticisms of this piece that they sent my way. And I think it says a lot of their character and the confidence of their product to kind of push that forward. And me, of all people, I got a small following. I'm a bigger fish in a small pond, but I'm in a small pond. So I want to make sure I shout them out and show them some love, because I'm not sure if I ever saw this day coming. I mean, they had to know when they sent it my way that I was going to say it could use more paint. I mean, I'm the paint guy, right? I mean, like, all those little detailings in there. Underneath the scorpion sculpt, there's tons of little places for paint. So they had to know I would have that criticism, but they still sent it my way. So I think that's pretty big of them. But yeah, I can't think of a reason to say not to get them, unless you want your city bots to be much bigger than the kind of combiner scale that I think most of us are using for our Masterpiece collection, or you are having price difficulties with it, which I totally get both of those things. However, I gotta say, it's a nice piece, and I'm looking forward to putting it on my shelf. So thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.